The first thing I saw was a burgundy corner of a passport sticking out behind a row of winter coats. I was looking for flu medicine, not secrets. My hand went in and came back with 3 passports, kids' photos on the ID pages, and names I didn't recognize. My wife Emma's closet had been a private room for years. It was where she kept extra blankets, craft supplies, things she swore she'd organize and never did. I opened drawers, looking for what I thought was a misplaced box of cold meds, and found a small pile of government documents instead. 2 children I'd kissed goodnight that morning, Mia and Jonah, stared up at me in tiny passport photographs, smiling under different surnames and different nationalities. I read and reread. Mia Thompson, British passport. Jonah Navarro, Irish passport. Same birthdays as mine and Emma's. Same faces, different names, different countries. My throat closed. I slid the passports into my jacket, like someone was handing me a grenade. I did the thing people do when the world tilts. I walked into the kitchen like nothing happened and sat at the table where the sun cut across the wood. Emma came home from her part-time job 30 minutes later, humming. She noticed the jackets hanging oddly and asked if I'd started spring cleaning early. I didn't answer. I put the passports on the table like evidence. She went still so fast I thought she might faint. Then she did something worse. She smiled a small, helpless smile and said they were for travel, for convenience, nothing to worry about. She said she'd get to them later. Her voice had gone thin in a way I'd only heard once before, the night she told me about her mother's health crisis years ago. I pushed, she pushed back. She asked why I'd been rifling through her private things. The first crack wasn't a dramatic scream. It was a slow leak of things we had not been saying to each other for years. I told her I felt betrayed. She told me I was overreacting. The kids were asleep upstairs, oblivious. I left the table with the passports like a dare and drove to my sister Lena's place at midnight. Lena had been my voice of reason since college. When I told her what I'd found, she made a coffee and did not make me feel stupid for being angry. She said there were usually 2 ways this went: the harmless, plausible explanation, or the destructive one that started with deception and ended with lawyers. She suggested I not jump to conclusions, but also not be naive. She told me to take photos, catalog everything, and maybe sleep in the spare room. I went home and went to the spare room. I did not sleep. My mind ran through possibilities like an old DVD, skipping, secret adoptions, false identities to claim benefits, a plan to run away, my wife arranging new lives under different names. I went downstairs at dawn, found Emma making pancakes, and watched her move like nothing had happened. That morning I went back into the closet with my phone and a calmer heart. The passports weren't alone. There were receipts, airline tickets booked one way, paid with a credit card in Emma's name. There was a small sealed envelope labeled emergency with photocopies of birth certificates, a list of names and phone numbers, and a cheap prepaid phone with no SIM in it. On the back of a folded note were hastily scrawled words: "If she's gone, take the kids to Safe House A. Don't call him. Don't look back." Every 2 paragraphs, the story changed. First passports, then tickets. After tickets, the invoice history for a lawyer in another state. After the lawyer, a screenshot from a messaging app, an unknown number saying, "I know where you live. I'll find the kids." I sat on the floor, in the closet, and let the air go from my lungs. I thought of all the nights Emma had said she felt watched when she walked to the car, of her locking the back door twice. I remembered one time last year when she refused to go to a family barbecue because she said she had 12 reasons why it wasn't a good idea. I had laughed it off because the barbecue was important to my dad. I had told her she was being dramatic. I had been so certain she was the anxious one. I called her mother. She answered on the second ring, voice like syrup. Emma's mother said Emma had been scared once, years ago, but then she changed the subject. Her hesitation sounded like a closed door between 2 people who both loved Emma but had been trained to look the other way. I confronted Emma again that evening. I did not raise my voice. The passports were on the counter like a bet. She looked at me and said, "You found them." She moved like someone who had been rehearsing the same explanation in her head for months. She told me a story she had never told me in 8 years. When she was 19, she'd had a relationship with a man who later became dangerous. He wasn't in prison, And he wasn't a celebrity, just a man who, after they broke up, refused to accept it. He stalked. He lied. He threatened. Emma said she'd changed her name, left town, and built a small life one careful brick at a time. She said she had been terrified that person would come back when Jonah was born, that the man would try to claim the children or hurt us to get at her. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to see the frightened girl who'd survived. But a small, loud voice in me kept asking why she hadn't trusted me enough to tell me from the start. Why keep my children's fake passports in the back of a closet where one curious husband could find them? The answer she gave hurt more than the secret. She said she hadn't told me because the last time she had asked me to see a counselor, I had scoffed. I had called her nervousness imagination. I had told her to be practical and not waste money on therapy. Then she told me another thing. She hadn't only planned for escape, she'd planned for the worst. The unknown number that had texted her months ago had not been a random crank. It was someone who had shown up where Emma's sister worked, someone who had known Jonah's preschool schedule. She'd paid for passports, lawyers, and a plan because she couldn't risk that man finding the kids. That explanation changed the next phase of the story. The passports were no longer evidence of betrayal to Run, they were insurance. But that didn't make the secrecy okay. The violation of trust was real, and neither of us could erase that. I did the thing my gut told me not to do. I told a friend at work. Friends rarely help with secrets. They amplify them. Ethan listened, then told me bluntly, "Call a lawyer." For once in the night, his advice felt clear like a flashlight beam. Lena called from the other room and told me to slow down and think about the kids. My head was split down the middle. We went to a counselor 2 days later. The woman in the office didn't give us answers. She asked questions. Why did Emma keep the passports hidden? Why did I feel expelled from the partnership? Why were we choosing silence as a strategy rather than teamwork? The counselor asked for specifics, and we gave them like weapons. Emma cried a lot in that session. She said she had been protecting her children from a memory of fear she thought she had controlled. She also admitted she had been protecting herself from being judged for her past. She said she wanted to be the one to decide when the kids would know, if they ever would. I understood fear in the room, like a physical thing. I also understood my own anger, like a hot coin in my palm. Then something else broke open. I found an old voicemail on my phone I deleted months ago. It was a man's voice saying he missed the little boy and he knew where we lived. I had deleted it because I hated the idea that someone from Emma's past could touch our life. Now it was proof. We took it to the police. The officer was patient. He looked at the passports, the receipts, the taped printouts of messages. He told us to get restraining orders, to change routines, to install cameras. He said the passports complicated things. If someone wanted to remove the kids from the country, passports in different names could be used to smuggle them out. He said the passports were evidence that someone had been planning contingencies either for protection or for flight. That night at the police station, Emma stood beside me and didn't flinch when I asked why she had not told me. She said she'd been ashamed of the fear that still lived under her ribs. She said she was trying to be both protector and secret keeper because she didn't trust anyone to protect our children like she could. Her voice cracked when she said those words. I sat down on a concrete bench and felt like a small, ugly part of me had been exposed. The lowest point came in a parking lot under sodium lights. I imagined the worst-case scenarios, and they were vivid. Me losing my children to a mania I had ignored. Emma running away thinking she had to save them without me. Police finding nothing because we were too late. I imagined being the man in those passports. A father divorced and suspicious. Left with questions and no way to rebuild trust. I had never felt smaller. Then, strangely, I stopped looking outward and turned my anger inward. I had been dismissive of Emma's fears. I had laughed at her when she wanted to change locks, when she suggested we meet with a security consultant. I had prioritized convenience over caution because I thought the world was reasonable and threats were for other people. That realization didn't absolve her, but it explained why she had learned to keep things to herself. My choice forward was ugly and simple. I could double down, demand she hand over everything, file for custody to control the damage, or I could demand partnership. I chose partnership. I told Emma I needed transparency. Every document, every contact, every ticket laid bare. I told her I wanted to be part of the plan. If she was protecting the children, protect them with me. No more solo missions. She gave me everything. She unlocked a small safe and showed me more documents, names of attorneys, notes on safe houses, a list of people who had helped her disappear when she was 19. She had a picture of a man I had never seen. Her hand shook as she pointed him out. She agreed to let me hold the passports instead of hiding them away. She agreed to call the police together if there was a threat. She agreed to couples therapy twice a month. There was a climactic moment that felt like a court scene, but it was just the kitchen table at 2 in the morning. We laid all the paperwork out, and we decided on a protocol. If a message came in, we would go to the police as a team. If Emma felt watched, we would change routines and call in the security consultant. If she wanted to use the passports to leave, we would only do it with both parents present or with court supervision. We wrote the agreement on a napkin and taped it to the fridge like a ridiculous vow. Weeks later, the police arrested a man with a history, someone who matched the voicemail voice and the photo in Emma's file. He hadn't mastered modern privacy. He had left footprints. The passports never left the safe again. We signed orders to keep the kids on domestic travel lists and set camera alarms that made us both feel ridiculous and safe. There's no neat ending. Trust didn't stitch itself back in a day. The passports were proof of a danger we had narrowly avoided, but also proof of a secret that could have destroyed us. We went to therapy. We learned to say small things we had been swallowing for years. Emma learned I could be a partner and not a judge. I learned to listen to the parts of her that were afraid and to value preparation over convenience. On a Tuesday in late summer, I found Emma in the backyard watching Jonah and Mia make a crooked sandcastle. I sat down beside her and she leaned her shoulder to mine. She told me quietly that she had never meant to make me feel excluded and she was sorry for how she had hid things. I told her I was sorry too for not listening, for laughing, for assuming. The passports are still in a safe. The names on them are different. The faces are the same. We have new rules now. We show each other what we hide. We make plans together. We go to the police as a team. My heart is still tattered in places. But it beats easier because the closet is closed and the coats hang the way they should. The children play in the sun. And for now, that is the measure I use to know we're moving forward.